Hey, Paul.
Yeah, Jonathan?
I had a thought.
Oh, what was that?
What if this time we just went completely off script and instead of picking a live-action series that's already ended, we do one of the animated series that is currently going on for our 50th episode of The Measure of an Episode!
It's funny you say that. I'm glad that you say that because I actually happen to have watched one of the episodes of the Lower Decks.
Was it? I hope it was the same one. It's Lower Decks, not the Lower Decks.
Probably. Wait, is it the Lower Decks?
No, it's Lower Decks.
Okay.
Yeah.
What episode did you watch of No, It's the Lower Decks?
I just decided to start with the end.
Hey, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah?
And I feel like that was a good idea.
Yeah.
I feel like it couldn't have been a better introduction to this show.
Than to watch the end? What better way to start than to finish it?
I was actually very surprised. I was not expecting what I got.
Right.
Do we want to set this up? It was called No Small Parts, episode 10, season 1 of Lower Decks, the. And I don't have the blurb. Do you have the blurb in front of you?
I don't. But while I'm looking it up, why don't you tell everybody what this podcast actually is?
Well, folks, this is the measure of an episode where we endeavor to explore. Why can I never think of that word? I can never think of explore, and it always hangs me up. Where we endeavor to explore. Is it endeavor to explore?
No.
What podcast is this?
This is the measure of an episode where it's our continuing mission.
Our continuing mission is to explore. We don't endeavor to do anything.
No, we don't.
We do not. No. Where is our continuing mission to explore? It makes a Star Trek episode a genuine Star Trek episode, and not just it's Thursday night animated TV, like The Simpsons, let's say, or Family Guy, or American Dad,
or some other
or
Seth
American
MacFarlane
Dad,
or Futurama.
Yeah, or Futurama. That's
they
a good one.
Keep
it's
going to the same well,
show.
like just Matt Groening and Seth MacFarlane. Somebody else needs to get out there.
I know.
And we do so with 3 criteria. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there we
what?
Go.
And with what?
No, go ahead.
No? All right.
No?
You end that sentence with a preposition. And we do so with 3 criteria. 1, is there an exploration of science fiction within the story? And 2, is that exploration novel or unique? And 3, is there an ethical or moral dilemma presented to one of the characters in the episode? Now, as Paul mentioned, we did watch No Small Parts from Lower Decks, which is episode 10 of season 1. And the blurb is, Tendi welcomes a new officer to the Cerritos. Oh, that's who Tendi was, the green girl. Mariner navigates a change in her status among the crew. Okay. And the ship comes under attack from a powerful vessel, which was awesome.
That might have been my favorite part. Well, let me say, first off, it was very nice to see a proper intro to a Star Trek show, I guess, in kind of a long time. It was a next gen fueled or inspired intro where they had sort of the soaring orchestral music and the ship, which is called the Cerritos. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the Cerritos. Sort of going through. It kind of reminded me a lot of the Voyager intro. Yeah. But it was nice to see. It was nice to hear, I guess, a new theme in the grand canon of Star Trek music. And Star Wars. If they want to use it there, they'll probably be allowed. So that was nice. And there was a point, it may have been my favorite part of my entire watching experience last night, which was where, in the intro, the ship encounters some Romulans fighting the Borg, and the ship just says,
yep, just takes off.
It.
Yep.
Turns around and goes away. I thought it was great. It was really funny.
So, but here was my thought. Like, I understood this show to be the kind of the incompetent or inexperienced crewman of an experienced crew. And the intro, I mean, the intro is played to last like that. And they also bumped something on the ice planet, and then they had some kind of space alien attached to their ship as they were flying by. But that seemed more to me like the rest of the crew is kind of that, relaxed, no, we're not going to jump headfirst into these things. And like, they're not the most professional with the fact that like they bumped the ice planet and they weren't able to remove the space alien on their ship. So it was a fun intro. Like, I liked that it wasn't playing to the expectation, I guess, because it's not a stereotype for Star Trek. But it just seemed odd because I thought that the bridge crew was veteran, and and they were able to handle themselves in space.
Yeah, I actually didn't have. I remember you saying that, but it didn't occur to me when I was watching it, and I didn't really have any expectations going in. I think I said in the previous episode that I really had no idea what this was about,
right?
Other than whatever can be implied by the title of Lower Decks. So and there was not much to be gleaned from that. So for me, it was just going in very clean. And I was sort of disappointed, I have to say, because I thought it was going to be a little bit more in-depth in terms of it being a Star Trek show. And really kind of what it was for me was it's sort of a modern animation show with a skin of Star Trek on it, where all the words they're using are Star Trek words. All of the references they make are kind of all sort of side references to Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it's not really about Star Trek. It's not a Star Trek show. And that was my impression from this episode. And we kind of lucked out because it was the season finale. And so they had pulled out all the stops. I'm sure that the regular show is not this intense, nor does it contain this many next-gen actors in it. But I don't know. How did you feel about this? When you got to the end of the episode, were you satisfied?
Well, yeah, I was satisfied. But I think, I think this was not a proper Star Trek episode just because of the sci-fi. I think, kind of what we talked about the last episode, just with a find and replace, like this could have been, a heist movie or a heist episode of something where they had to try and go and get something, like a CSI with a bomb, like they have to get in there, get the bomb and get out type thing.
Nor was it novel.
Right.
I mean, everything was sort of a reference to old Star Trek shows. Like those guys, I think those are Voyager. The bad guys, the villains that show up with the giant ships.
Oh no, they're Next Generation with Geordi. Remember, it's broken. Can you fix it?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. For some reason, I thought that was a Voyager thing. Yeah. So everything was a reference. None of it was novel.
Right.
And I will say though, there was science fiction in it that, as far as I can tell, was novel, and it was kind of an exploration of showing the problems with creating a sentient holodeck program, because they had that thing that shows up where they need to create a virus, and they have to disable all of the safety protocols in order for it to do that, which was a lie because it had already created the safety or already created the virus. He just needed them to turn off the safety protocols.
Right.
And that to me was kind of the only novel science fiction in the show, which was, they now have an evil holodeck program. Because somebody made it sentient in the past. I'm sure we missed the episode, obviously, when they create this thing. But I think that's what they're trying to say, is that, this is the problem with the holodeck. You can't do that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that also means that it had that prepared. So I wonder, like, it kind of raises the question of can the holodeck characters, if they are sentient like that, can they create things on their own time, but then not be able to present them because of the safety protocols? Or do those safety protocols have to be lifted before it can even create those things? Like I missed the line, and I didn't realize I missed the line until just now, but about him creating the 3 viruses, like whether he did it just in that moment or if he said, like, I had them on standby.
He said he'd already done it.
Okay.
That's why it was ready to go.
Right.
But what I want to know is, what is the background of this program? And why does it exist? And so, I mean, it's not like it would be tough to to figure it out. But I am curious where that came from. And I don't know, that was the only kind of exploration of science fiction in the show.
Well, I think there was a lot of exploration of sci-fi in general in the story, but it wasn't in the plot. Like the exocomp doing the precision surgery. And the other guy with the behavior modifications, in his little eye socket thing.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, I liked that guy. I liked that there was sort of not an android, but a cyborg. I guess he would be a cyborg.
Yeah.
But they probably don't say that because everybody's, Borg is a trigger for everybody.
Right.
So they don't want to...
He's a hybrid?
I guess so. I mean, I think it's a cross between Data and something else. And nothing. Just they're trying to do their own.
Well, I'd say Data and Geordi.
No, that's true. Yeah, I guess you're right. You're right. But for me, just more broadly, I was disappointed in the the lack of depth in a Star Trek show. Because number one, this is created and helmed by one of the Rick and Morty guys.
Right.
And I just had such bigger expectations for the execution of something like this. And I understand that it's a modern animation show, and so it has to, in some way, resemble that because that's your audience. Those are the people who are going to tune in. Mm. And I seriously doubt that they were expecting all of the hardcore Star Trek fans to tune into this. They were trying to pull in the Rick and Morty people, and in a way they probably did. But I really wanted it to be a deeper pull. You know, I wanted it to do all of the things they can't do in the live action stuff because it's too expensive or just it's too much of a deep pull for them to spend the money on something like that. For them to have an exocomp, you know?
Right.
I mean, I'm curious. I would love to know, another one of those pie in the sky polls, how many people understood the exocomp reference. So I don't know. I was just disappointed. I thought that it was mostly dealing in the kind of just humorous animation language and not so much in the Star Trek language. I mean, obviously the writers have a working knowledge of Star Trek, but they just sort of peppered it in. It's just a skin of Star Trek. That's how it felt to me.
Right. See, and I think like if you go back, it's kind of like Arrested Development. How it took repeat viewings and the extra episodes in season 2 to like really to really pay off all the jokes that were set up previously. And Rick and Morty's kind of the same way. Like season 2 gets even deeper and season 3 gets even deeper. In Futurama, like Jurassic Bark. I think that's the episode. Like that's one of the most emotional episodes, but you can't watch it by itself. And it wasn't until later seasons. So I think that like this is more season 1 is a little bit more of establishing the universe, kind of in the same way of Rick and Morty, and I would not be surprised if in later seasons they do much harder and deeper sci-fi than they are right now, because it's a matter of drawing in the audience, and they're doing so with the light humor in the same way that Rick and Morty did.
I don't know. Like I've seen, I think all of the seasons of Rick and Morty. I may have missed the most recent one, but it always felt very heavy in terms of the science fiction, even from the first episode. Like it never felt like they were pulling punches for the sake of gaining a watchership audience, also known as a watchership. And I felt like Rick and Morty was the reason that they are the kind of, I guess, the most famous science fiction animation. Not that there are a lot, right. but it's kind of the gold standard now for that kind of stuff. And I never got that they were sort of trending toward lighter character stuff and lighter subject matter in the first season. But I haven't seen it in a while, so I could be wrong. But that felt way more concentrated than what this feels like. This feels like when they go to see Landru on that planet from TOS. It was just cursory, right? They didn't explore anything other than making the reference to it.
I mean, specifically on Beta 3, yeah, no, I'd agree with you. But then when they came back, like she raised a major issue about Starfleet. Is the fact that they explore these planets, and then she said, like, at the end of the episode, Beta 3 is called a known culture, but they don't know it. Like one generation, and it's already reverted back to how it used to be.
Right, but then that was the end of it.
Right,
they never go back to that planet, and they never. The episode isn't about that. It's not even about the grander theme of Starfleet, sort of, coming and leaving and never coming back. Like I think that would be an example of if they were going to invoke Landru in that planet, that the episode would be about that. That would be the theme.
Well, and I kind of took it as it was, because she said at the end, as a captain, she has to follow protocol, and as an ensign or whatever her daughter is, she's allowed to play outside the rules like that. She's allowed to do those things that the captain would not be able to. And so, she was saying like it seemed like the setup for season 2 of them actually working together, and whatever the main character's name is.
That's true. I did not retain anybody's name at all.
Right.
Nobody.
Well, a peanut hamper.
Oh yeah. Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But anyway, like her daughter, like I saw that as a setup for season 2 with them saying like we will now be able to do those deeper explorations of things that were in previous series that had no follow-up. We are going to do the follow-up on those shows because that's basically what this entire episode was. Like the Packleth, like they thought that they were a joke of a culture, and here they were this war behemoth now because they had collected everything in the same way they had done with Geordi. There's Landru that was left to its own devices and they just reverted back. And then there's Exocomps where they're now sentient, and they did exactly what we talked about in the episode. They're like, we need you. And she's like, yeah, no, I'm not.
It's funny that this episode encompasses most of the shows we've watched. We've only watched less than 8% of the total canon so far. Right. And all of them are encompassed in this one episode.
Yeah.
It's very strange. But they obviously know their stuff. Mm-hmm. And they obviously have a sense of what Star Trek is. I just didn't feel like this show encompasses that. I mean, it does in the sense that it shows off their knowledge, but not in any kind of... It feels too schizophrenic to me. It feels too like we're jumping from here to here, and that I think that's just the style of animation in general. But it doesn't have any patience with anything,
right?
And I don't know that's kind of what I was expecting, but maybe that's too great of an expectation or the wrong expectation to have for an animation show.
Well, it was also 30 minutes, right? Okay. Yeah, so I mean, it was definitely way more frenetic than a typical Star Trek episode, but I think that's because
absolutely
they're getting the whole story into the 30 minutes, so it's going to be a lot more meat. There's not going to be a whole lot of the reflection that there was in Next Generation or the boring technobabble that there was in Voyager.
Right,
but I think I'm still standing by it, like that I think that season 1 is just kind of drawing the audience in with like the fan service and the jokes and the quick pace and the random humor like Rick and Morty. And then this episode was like with all the references that it had, the Exocomp being more advanced, the Landru being reverted, and the Packleth being like, just when left to their own devices, they became a huge threat. And then their conversation afterward reflecting on Landru and the Packleth, like or Beta 3 and the Packleth, like I think that they're saying come season 2, we are going to do a lot more. Like I said, I would be shocked if in season 2 there is not an episode that follows up on Conspiracy, the horror Next Generation episode.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, it's funny because on one hand, we got a very concentrated episode of Lower Decks because it was the season finale.
Right.
But on the other hand, I wonder if we really have a good sense of what the show is like, because it is we got this, we got the big punch. It's sort of like watching a fireworks display and just skipping to the end.
Right. Yeah, and you're like, well, that's the whole thing. Like that's way too. It's not nuanced enough. Like you need those pauses. You need to enjoy those.
I know.
Those single ones.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that like there is an episode that that very much has there's 2 that I can think of that have a sci-fi plot to them. One of them is the guy main character. He has a transporter malfunction and he's just slightly out of phase, so everyone can see him, but he's not corporeal. Is that right? Yeah. And then there's another one where the girl protagonist thinks that another girl that has a crush on him is actually not possessed, but controlled by an alien. So like those 2 very clearly have sci-fi plots that you would not be able to have in another show.
Right.
So there's, but I again, having not seen them, I don't know how much of the plot. Like if you take Family Guy and you take out all the jokes, the episode's like maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's kind of the modern animation style, which is they're kind of all they're all sitcoms in a sense, and they deal in their own language and in their own plot lines and their own style and their own syntax, but they're not typically very plot heavy. They can't be.
Right.
They don't have enough time to be. I mean, just like Friends was never plot heavy. And I would be curious to know what would this show be like without jokes? If they said, okay, we're gonna put the humor aside for right now, and let's just see what kind of Star Trek episode we can make. And I don't know. For me, my biggest complaint, which is no fault of the episode or of the show, is that there's nothing really for us to sink our teeth into.
Right.
You know, everything is there's no discussion to have about what's going on. They kind of handle everything, and they make some good comments, like as you said about Starfleet and everything, but just not enough. You know, it's almost like we would have to watch an entire season to sink our teeth into it, to really get into the nitty gritty of what's going on in the universe.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So, listeners, what do you think? Our condition has been that the series has to be ended so we can really reflect on it and have the whole thing to experience. But do you want us to throw in the new series of all of them or just select few? Let us know. Send us an email at TheMeasureOfAnEpisode@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook at The Measure of an Episode Podcast, or you could, I guess, put it in a review. Yeah? Would that work? Would we see that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Those reviews help us quite a bit. So if you wouldn't mind going to your podcast provider, I think Apple is the best one to go to. So if you can do that, that'd be great. And leave us a review. It would really help us. 5 stars. Only. Only. But it also, let us know if you want us to watch, like, for example, the entire season of Lower Decks and talk about that, so we can really sink our teeth into what's going on. Because I think we're not being fair to the show, because it's only one episode, and frankly, I think that it deserves probably a little bit more attention than that. Maybe, I don't know. After having seen it, what do you think?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's episodic, which is nice. But I think that that character died at the end of the episode, so I think that it is taking advantage of the streaming aspect of it to actually have things have long-term consequences. If our listeners want us to, if they want to hear our thoughts on this stuff, we can like put it behind the Patreon wall, so we're not
polluting the mainstream.
Yeah,
is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're still sticking to our format. So I fell on that. Yes, there was a moral and ethical dilemma. Not only the aspect of the Federation, the Federation conflict. Like you find a culture and then that's the end of it. You don't do anything else with them. You don't pop in from time to time just to see if they're still following the same trajectory. But also the mother-daughter nepotism dilemma. Like, she very much did not want everyone to know, and then everyone did find out, and she was trying to figure out how to get that resolved. I mean, she figured it out by transferring ships, but that was her plan, even though it didn't follow through. But she found a way to work with her mom. So I think that was a pretty good moral and ethical dilemma. Both actually, moral for her and ethical for Starfleet.
Yeah, I agree.
But I just think I think that there was too much fan service and not an original plot, which again, series finale, or season finale, they probably just wanted to end with a bang that everybody had a good time. And I did. I thought the episode was great. Like, I thought it was super fun. I'm sorry you walked away disappointed, but I definitely had a good time with it.
I didn't think it was a bad episode. I had a different expectation for it. I wanted it to be something different than it actually was. I thought it was a good episode.
Okay.
I think it definitely did what it set out to do. I just was hoping for more of I wanted a Rick and Morty, a Star Trek Rick and Morty. That's what I was wanting.
Right.
And that was obviously not what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think in terms of there being science fiction, there was science fiction in it, but I don't know if it was novel.
I don't think it was an exploration of science fiction. Like, there wasn't anything integral to the plot. It was just, here are these cool sci-fi things happening in the background and cool sci-fi things that people are just dealing with daily. But there's the conflict itself was not sci-fi.
Right. It was all just reference.
Yeah.
You're right. So I guess that's a not
proper. Yeah. Yes, on the good side, but not proper.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see what we're watching next.
Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 15, The Trouble with Tribbles.
Oh, nice!
Yeah. Yeah. So perhaps you've heard of this, Jonathan?
Just peripherally. Like, I mean, I feel like they have trouble with Something called Tribbles.
Yes, that is correct. Kirk must deal with Federation bureaucrats, a Klingon battlecruiser, and a peddler who sells furry, purring, hungry little creatures as pets. It's funny, I didn't know that there were other things to this plot line other than the Tribbles themselves.
Yeah, actually, there is a spy in their midst in this episode.
Do you remember this episode?
I do.
Entirely?
But it's more because of the DS9 episode than the actual Tribbles episode.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, speaking of which, we'll ask again in the episode following, but in the Tribbles episode. But again, listeners, do you want us to break protocol and watch the sequel, The Trials and Tribulation of DS9, or should we just leave that for whenever it pops up randomly? Again, let us know. You can shoot us an email at TheMeasureOfAnEpisode@gmail.com.
All right. Well, I guess we should go watch this now.
Let's do it.